All right, everyone. We have a very odd article here that we have to talk about. And literally, right in the tagline, it's like, what the fuck is going on here? I'm going to read a little bit of this verbatim. Judge puts temporary pause on Trump's mass layoffs at government agencies. The president has, this is in her words, the president has the authority to seek changes to executive branch agencies, but he must do so in lawful ways, U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston said. Yes, indeed, there's a 14-day pause, so there's basically a legal challenge to this. Ilston said Trump may broadly restructure federal agencies, but only in lawful ways with approval from Congress. Uh, Here's the problem. I was under the impression that agencies that were administered by the executive branch, with Congress having already given permission for the executive branch to generally restructure them in whatever way the executive branch saw fit, I was under the impression that they were capable of doing that and no longer needed congressional purview. It's sort of like discretionary spending. Discretionary spending, especially for national security purposes, Congress allocates money and then the executive branch allocates it further. They're capable of using at least a portion of that money for whatever purpose they want. This was found, by the way, by a federal court many years ago under Trump's first administration when he said, hey, I want to take national security funding and use it to build bollard walls because the border is actually necessary for national security. And Congress balked at it, and states balked at it, and they filed lawsuits. And in the end, after a couple of years, a federal court said, yeah, you are allowed to do that because that is national security spending. Isn't this a similar situation in general? I would think that it is. It seems to be. So you're saying to me, Judge Ilston, that Donald Trump, as chief executive, is not capable of actually executing the executive branch at all. He has to have Congress's, the legislators, uh, consent to do so. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. From a legal standpoint, this is nonsensical, ultimately. Donald Trump unilaterally and clearly has the right to allocate funding on certain issues related to national defense. And if he decides to fire a bunch of people to lay them off from federal agencies that are under his direct purview, he's their boss. He's allowed to lay them off. He doesn't need Congress's consent. Now, if this were a bureau that was mainly administered by the legislature, he would not have that particular right. He's going after agencies that are generally under executive purview. And for the judiciary to come in and try to swap the two out and say, no, 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 no. I mean, it's an executive agency, but the legislature still, you have to go through them, is absolutely it's completely nonsensical. I don't think that I've ever seen a level of judicial activism like this. The president has the authority to seek changes to executive branch agencies, but he must do so in lawful ways. And in the case of large-scale reorganizations, so it depends on how much you're reorganizing it, apparently, with the cooperation of the legislative branch, Ilston said. Many presidents have sought this cooperation before. Many iterations of Congress have provided it. So if you fire two or three people, I guess that's legal. But if you lay off more than that, if you lay off a few dozen people, all of a sudden it becomes a problem. I'm not understanding the legal differentiation in this particular case. I'm also not understanding how the judiciary steps in and says that the executive branch, given permission to do so already by prior iterations of Congress, is not capable of doing the same thing. I'm not understanding it. We will read more. Nothing prevents the president from requesting this cooperation, as he did in his prior term of office, the judge continued. Indeed, the court holds the president likely must request congressional cooperation to order the charges he seeks, and thus issues a temporary restraining order to pause large-scale reductions in force in the meantime. Yellowstone's ruling was the broadest of its kind against administration efforts to overhaul the federal government, which have been led by Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, which is not a government office at all. It's an advisory committee more than anything else. Um, Here's the thing. If you identify waste, fraud, and abuse within government agencies, and you say, okay, enough is enough, this is not going to happen anymore. Again, what gives the judiciary any right at all to impede upon those executive proceedings when it has already been clarified by Congress, whether in the current iteration or a prior iteration, giving power specifically to the executive branch to engage in such behavior, to hire, to fire, to reorganize, whatever you want to call it. Permission was already given by Congress. Why would the judiciary therefore bring that up? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I'm finding myself incredulous at this moment because it makes absolutely no sense. But then again, within politics right now, pretty much nothing does make sense. So I think that we've answered our own question. That's about all. Peace out.